I walked into my Boston apartment exhausted from my business trip, but excited to surprise Amanda with the anniversary gift tucked in my pocket. 3 years together, 6 months engaged, and I still got butterflies thinking about her. The sound hit me first. Familiar moans from our bedroom upstairs. Confusion, then suspicion gripped me as I recognized my father's BMW in the driveway. Each step up the stairs felt like moving through quicksand until I reached our bedroom door. What I saw destroyed me in an instant. My father and my fiancé in our bed. What happened next would shatter my entire family forever. Where are you watching from today? Hit subscribe and like if you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely. You will not believe how this nightmare ends. Life was perfect before everything fell apart. I had built a successful career as a software engineer at Nexus Technologies, one of the most prestigious firms in Boston. My team respected me, my bosses valued me, and at 32, I was already being groomed for senior management. The corner office with its view of the harbor felt like just the beginning of what I could achieve. I met Amanda Taylor at a tech conference in New York 3 years ago. She worked for a competing firm but specialized in user experience design rather than back-end architecture like me. We struck up a conversation at the networking mixer, and I was immediately drawn to her sharp intelligence and quick wit. She had this way of tilting her head slightly when she laughed that made her auburn hair catch the light. By the end of the night, we had exchanged numbers and made plans to meet for coffee when we both returned to Boston. Our first official date stretched from coffee into dinner and then drinks afterward. We talked for hours about everything from quantum computing to our shared love of obscure indie bands. Amanda had this infectious enthusiasm that made even mundane topics fascinating. 3 dates later, I knew this was something special. The romance progressed quickly after that. Weekend trips to Vermont in the fall to see the changing leaves. A spontaneous flight to Miami in winter when we both needed to escape the Boston cold. Moving in together after 14 months felt natural, inevitable even. We found a beautiful apartment in Back Bay with hardwood floors and tall windows that flooded the space with natural light. I proposed 6 months before everything fell apart. I had reservations at Maison Laurent, this intimate French restaurant where Amanda had fallen in love with their chocolate soufflé on our first anniversary. The ring was custom designed with a center diamond surrounded by small sapphires that matched the exact shade of her eyes. When she said yes, the entire restaurant applauded. Her eyes shimmered with tears of joy, and I thought nothing could ever make me happier than that moment. We started planning the wedding immediately. Amanda wanted a spring ceremony at the Botanical Gardens. We talked about honeymoon destinations, debating between the Amalfi Coast and Kyoto. We discussed children, agreeing that we wanted to start trying soon after marriage. 2 kids, we thought. Maybe 3. A house in the suburbs eventually. All the normal dreams that seem so attainable when you believe in the person you love. My family had always been important to me. I grew up in suburban Chicago, in what I thought was a perfect household. My father, Richard, built a successful construction company from nothing. He worked long hours, but always made time for my baseball games and school events. Community respected him as a business leader and philanthropist. My mother, Eleanor, managed the household with warmth and precision. She volunteered at local charities and hosted dinner parties that were the talk of the neighborhood. Every Sunday, without fail, we had family dinner. Even after I moved to Boston for college and then work, I would call in to those dinners when I could not make the trip back. When I brought Amanda home to meet my parents for the first time, they welcomed her with open arms. Mom pulled out family photo albums, embarrassing me with stories from my childhood. Dad opened his best bottle of scotch and toasted to our happiness. Looking back, there were signs I should have noticed. The way my father would call Amanda directly instead of going through me. How he would sit next to her at family gatherings, his attention completely focused on her stories. The lingering hugs that lasted just a second too long. But you never want to see darkness in the people you love. You dismiss the uncomfortable feelings because the alternative is too painful to consider. The week before I discovered their betrayal, I was scheduled for an important business trip to Seattle. Our company was negotiating a major acquisition, and as team lead, I needed to be there in person. The trip was supposed to last 5 days, encompassing the weekend. Amanda seemed strangely relieved when I told her about the trip, which struck me as odd at the time. Usually, she would playfully pout about my business travel or suggest coming along if it was somewhere interesting. This time, she simply nodded and said it would give her time to catch up on some projects. When I kissed her goodbye on Thursday morning, she seemed distracted, checking her phone repeatedly. During the first 2 days in Seattle, I received several calls from my father. He claimed he was checking in about investment advice I had given him the previous month. The calls felt unnecessary, especially since we had discussed everything thoroughly already. In one call, I heard rustling in the background and a door closing. When I asked if someone was with him, he quickly changed the subject. By Saturday night, we had wrapped up the acquisition negotiations ahead of schedule. The contracts were signed, and there was no real reason for me to stay until Monday as planned. On impulse, I decided to fly back Sunday morning to surprise Amanda. Our official anniversary was the following week, but I thought an early celebration would be romantic. Before heading to the airport, I stopped at a jewelry store in downtown Seattle and bought a pair of diamond earrings that had caught her eye during our last vacation. The flight back to Boston felt endless. I imagined Amanda's surprise when I walked through the door, the earrings in one hand and flowers in the other. I pictured a day spent together, perhaps brunch at our favorite cafe, followed by a walk along the Charles River. I had no idea I was flying home to the end of everything I thought was true. When my Uber pulled up to our apartment building around 2 in the afternoon, I immediately noticed the sleek black BMW parked in the visitor spot, my father's car. The custom license plate reading BLDR1 confirmed it. A slight frown crossed my face, but I rationalized that perhaps he was in town for business and stopped by to see Amanda when he could not reach me. My father and Amanda had always gotten along well after all. I paid the driver and grabbed my overnight bag along with the bouquet of lilies I had picked up at the airport. The small jewelry box felt heavy in my jacket pocket as I walked up the path to our building. I used my key to enter quietly, thinking I might catch them in a normal conversation and surprise them both. The apartment was quiet at first, too quiet for a normal social visit. No sounds of television or conversation drifted from the living room. I set down my bag by the door, still holding the flowers. As I moved further inside, I heard it. A muffled laugh from upstairs, followed by a low groan that raised the hair on the back of my neck. My body knew before my mind would accept it. That familiar feeling of dread that starts in your stomach and spreads outward, turning your limbs to lead. I wanted to call out to announce my presence and break whatever was happening. But some primitive instinct kept me silent as I moved toward the stairs. Each step up felt like climbing a mountain. The sounds grew clearer, unmistakable. The rhythmic creaking of our bed frame, Amanda's breathless moans that I had thought were only for me, and beneath that a deeper voice murmuring words I could not make out. When I reached the landing, our bedroom door was partially open. Sunlight streamed through the gap, along with the sounds that were now crystal clear. I stood frozen, my hand gripping the banister so tightly my knuckles turned white. The flowers dangled forgotten from my other hand. For several heartbeats, I considered turning around, walking out, pretending I had never come home early. How simple it would have been to just not know. Instead, I pushed the door open. They did not notice me at first. They were too lost in each other. My father, his back to me, his body covering Amanda. Her legs wrapped around his waist, her fingers digging into his shoulders, her head thrown back in pleasure. On our bed. The bed I had helped her choose when we moved in together. The sheets we had picked out together at Bloomingdale's during a President's Day sale. Amanda saw me first. Her eyes widened, and she gasped, pushing at my father's chest. He turned his head, and when our eyes met, I saw no shame, no remorse, just annoyance at the interruption. For what seemed like an eternity, no one moved. No one spoke. The scene burned itself into my memory in excruciatingly vivid detail. The discarded clothes on the floor, the bottle of wine on the nightstand, 2 glasses, one with lipstick on the rim. How long had this been happening? How many times had they laughed at me behind my back? Amanda broke the silence, scrambling to cover herself with the sheet. Harrison, you were supposed to be in Seattle. I can explain. This is not what it looks like. Not what it looks like. The most pathetic cliché in the history of being caught. My father slowly rolled off her, reaching for his boxers on the floor with no apparent urgency. His casualness was perhaps the most infuriating part. Son, you need to calm down. These things happen. We did not plan for this to develop, but sometimes attraction cannot be denied. Something snapped inside me at those words. The flowers dropped from my hand petals, scattering across the hardwood floor. The jewelry box dug into my palm as my hand clenched into a fist inside my pocket. All the shock and disbelief crystallized into pure rage in an instant. I lunged at my father before he could stand up straight. My first punch caught him directly in the jaw, snapping his head back. He staggered against the dresser, knocking over a framed photo of Amanda and me on our engagement day. The sound of shattering glass was oddly satisfying. "Harrison, stop," Amanda screamed, clutching the sheet around her body. I ignored her, focusing all my fury on the man who had raised me, taught me to be honorable, and then betrayed me in the worst possible way. My father recovered quickly, blocking my next punch and shoving me back. Despite being in his 50s, he was still strong from years of construction work before moving to management. "You have lost your mind," he growled, wiping blood from his lip. This is not how a rational adult handles conflict. His condescension only fueled my rage. I charged again, tackling him into the wall. Picture frames crashed down around us as we grappled. I landed several more punches to his ribs and face. He fought back, catching me with an elbow to the temple that made my vision blur momentarily. Amanda kept screaming, alternating between begging us to stop and threatening to call the police. She grabbed her clothes and started dressing frantically while we continued to fight. The battle moved from the bedroom into the hallway as we crashed against walls and knocked over the small decorative table that held a vase of dried flowers. My father was bleeding from his nose and a cut above his eye, but he managed to land a solid punch to my stomach that doubled me over momentarily. 29 years, I gasped, straightening up. 29 years I looked up to you, respected you, wanted to be like you, and this is what you really are. He wiped blood from his face with the back of his hand. You would not understand. Your mother and I have not connected in years. Amanda and I share something special. That was enough to send me into a final frenzy. I slammed him against the wall, forearm pressed against his throat. "Get out of my house. Now. Both of you." Amanda appeared in the hallway, fully dressed, but disheveled. "Harrison, please, can we talk about this? It was a mistake. I never meant to hurt you." I released my father and turned to her, pulling the jewelry box from my pocket and flinging it at her feet. 3 years. Was any of it real? Was our entire relationship just a game to you? Her face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. Of course it was real. I love you. This just happened. Richard made me feel special when you were always working late. Get your things and get out. I said, my voice deadly calm now. You have 10 minutes. Whatever is left after that goes in the trash. My father had slunk back to the bedroom to finish dressing. When he emerged, his arrogance had faded, somewhat replaced by a wariness, as he assessed the damage to his face. You will regret this, Harrison, he said quietly. When you calm down, you will see that this reaction is completely disproportionate. I laughed, a hollow sound devoid of humor. Disproportionate. You slept with my fiancé in my bed. Consider yourself lucky I am not pressing charges for breaking and entering. Amanda invited me, he replied smugly. Nothing illegal about that. I moved toward him again, and he quickly backed toward the stairs. This is not over, he warned. And your mother will be devastated when she hears how you attacked me. Get out before I throw you out, I snarled. While Amanda gathered some of her clothes and essentials, I stood in the living room shaking with adrenaline and rage. When she tried to approach me, suitcase in hand, I turned away. Harrison, please. We can work through this. Couples therapy, anything. I made a terrible mistake, but our relationship is worth fighting for. Was he worth it? I asked, still not looking at her. Was destroying everything we built worth whatever cheap thrill you got from sleeping with my father? She had no answer for that. With one last tearful glance, she walked out the door. My father waited for her by his car, his posture stiff with pain from our fight. As they drove away, I stood in the doorway watching a strange numbness beginning to replace the anger. Back inside, I methodically began destroying every trace of Amanda. I took the engagement ring she had left on the bathroom counter and flushed it down the toilet. I gathered all our photos and dumped them in the kitchen sink, setting them on fire and watching as the flames turned our memories to ash. I opened a bottle of bourbon and drank straight from it as I moved through the apartment, erasing her presence. In her dresser, I found a stack of hotel receipts hidden beneath her lingerie. The dates aligned perfectly with evenings I had worked late or traveled for business. 3 months. Their affair had been going on for 3 months, at least a dozen encounters documented in neat paper trails. Her phone had synchronized with our shared tablet. When I checked the message history, I found hundreds of texts between them going back nearly 4 months. Pet names, explicit photos, plans for their encounters. My father asking if I suspected anything. Amanda reassuring him that I was clueless, too wrapped up in my work to notice. One message from my father stood out. When will you tell him? We cannot keep this hidden forever. Her response. After the wedding. The prenup will be better if he does not suspect anything. They had not only betrayed me, but planned to continue the deception through our marriage, potentially setting up a more lucrative divorce settlement. The calculated nature of their betrayal cut deeper than the physical infidelity itself. I drank until the bottle was empty, then collapsed onto the couch, unable to face the bed they had defiled. Sleep came in, fitful bursts interrupted by vivid flashes of what I had witnessed. By morning, my knuckles were swollen, my ribs ached, and a decision had crystallized in my mind. My mother deserved to know the truth. The drive to my parents' suburban home the next day felt surreal. The familiar route that had always represented comfort and homecoming now led to another confrontation I was dreading. My father's BMW was noticeably absent from the driveway when I arrived, which gave me a momentary sense of relief. I needed to speak with my mother alone first. The modest 2-story colonial, with its perfectly maintained lawn and flower beds, looked exactly the same as it always had. How strange that the exterior could remain unchanged, while everything it represented had been corrupted. I sat in my car for several minutes, gathering my courage, rehearsing what I would say. When I finally rang the doorbell, my mother answered with her usual warm smile. Eleanor Davis had always been the picture of suburban elegance. Her silver-streaked dark hair always perfectly styled her clothes, tasteful and expressive of her personality. Today she wore gardening clothes and had a smudge of dirt on her cheek. Harrison. What a wonderful surprise, she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug. I was just tending to my roses. Come in, come in. I can make some iced tea. I followed her inside, noticing how she chattered about her garden club and neighborhood gossip as she led me to the kitchen. This was normal for her, filling silence with pleasant conversation. But today, I detected an underlying tension in her voice, a slight tremble in her hands as she filled glasses with ice. Mom, I said gently, interrupting her description of the neighborhood association meeting. I need to talk to you about something serious. Something difficult. Her movements slowed as she set the pitcher down. Is everything all right with the wedding plans? Amanda has not been returning my calls about the flower arrangements. The mention of Amanda's name made my stomach clench. There is not going to be a wedding, Mom. Amanda and I are over. Her hand flew to her chest. What? But everything was going so well. What happened? Did you have a fight? I took a deep breath. Mom, yesterday I caught Amanda in our bed with another man. She gasped, genuine shock, crossing her features. Oh, Harrison, that is terrible. I am so sorry. For a moment I felt relief at her sympathy, but I had to tell her the whole truth. Mom, it was Dad. I caught Amanda in bed with Dad. The change in her expression was immediate and jarring. The shock and sympathy hardened into something cold and defensive. She took a step back from me, her eyes narrowing. That is absolutely ridiculous. How dare you make such an accusation? Mom, I saw them with my own eyes. In my bed. I came home early from Seattle. She shook her head vigorously. No, you must be mistaken. Your father would never do such a thing. Never. I wish I was mistaken. But it happened. Ask him yourself. Look at his face. We got into a fight. A flash of recognition crossed her features. My father must have returned home with visible injuries and offered some explanation. So it was you, she said quietly. Then, with growing anger, your father came home last night with a black eye and split lip, claiming he had been mugged after a business meeting. You attacked your own father. After I found him having sex with my fiancée, I clarified frustration building. What did you expect me to do? Shake his hand. My mother's face had transformed completely. The warm, nurturing woman I had known my entire life was gone, replaced by someone defensive and hostile. Your father called me this morning. He told me you might come here with wild accusations. He said you have been unstable lately, working too hard, drinking too much. He was worried about your mental state. The revelation that my father had preemptively poisoned my mother against me felt like another betrayal, and you believed him. Just like that, Harrison, your father said you have been making inappropriate advances toward Amanda for months. That she confided in him because she did not know how to handle it without breaking off the engagement. He was counseling her yesterday when you burst in already drunk and began attacking him in a jealous rage. I stared at my mother in disbelief. The story was so ludicrous, so completely backward, that I could not comprehend how she could possibly believe it. Yet her expression showed no doubt, no willingness to consider my version of events. That is completely insane, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. Amanda and I were engaged. We lived together. Why would I need to make advances? They have been having an affair behind my back for months. I have proof. What proof? She challenged. Hotel receipts. Text messages. Ask Amanda yourself if you do not believe me. My mother folded her arms across her chest. I already spoke with Amanda this morning. She was absolutely distraught. She confirmed everything your father told me. Said you have become controlling and paranoid. That you invented this affair to justify your abusive behavior. The coordination of their lies stunned me into momentary silence. They had not only betrayed me, but conspired to paint me as the villain. And my own mother had accepted their version without question. Mom, why would I make this up? Why would I end my engagement and attack Dad over nothing? Think about it. Does that make any sense? What makes sense, she said coldly, is that you have always been jealous of your father's success, always felt you had something to prove. And when things were not perfect in your relationship, you could not handle it and needed someone to blame. Her words struck like physical blows. Not only did she not believe me, but she was using my childhood insecurities against me. I had occasionally struggled with feeling I could never measure up to my father's achievements, something I had confided in her during vulnerable moments. You have always seen Dad as perfect, I said quietly. Even when he worked late nights and missed your anniversary, even when he forgot your birthday 3 years in a row, you always made excuses for him. Do not try to deflect this onto me, she snapped. I think you should leave Harrison, and I think you should consider getting professional help. This paranoid delusion about your father is deeply disturbing. I stood up slowly, a profound sadness replacing my anger. He has manipulated you for years, Mom. And now he has manipulated you against your own son. I feel sorry for you. Her eyes flashed. Get out of my house. Do not come back until you are ready to apologize to your father and get the help you clearly need. As I walked to the door, she called after me. And Harrison, do not contact your father. He is considering a restraining order after your violent outburst. Consider this your only warning. I turned back one last time. 30 years, Mom. 30 years I have been your son, and you choose to believe him after one phone call. Think about what that says. I walked out of my childhood home knowing I might never return. The double betrayal of my fiancé and father was crushing, but my mother's refusal to even consider my side cut deepest of all. In the space of 24 hours, I had lost my entire family and my future. The next 3 months passed in a fog of isolation and pain. I took a leave of absence from work, unable to focus on code or attend meetings with a convincing facade of normalcy. I moved out of the apartment that held too many memories and found a small place across town. The lease manager did not ask questions when I paid 6 months up front. I blocked all contact from my family, changed my phone number, deleted social media accounts. Amanda tried reaching me through mutual friends, claiming she wanted to explain that things were not what they seemed. I instructed everyone to tell her exactly what I had seen with my own eyes and that no explanation could change it. My father sent a formal letter through his attorney threatening legal action for the physical assault if I made any defamatory claims about him to family, friends, or business associates. I forwarded it to my own lawyer without response. Only one friend stuck by me through the darkest period. James had been my roommate in college and knew me better than almost anyone. He never questioned my account, never suggested I might be overreacting. He checked in daily, brought food when I could not bring myself to leave the apartment, and eventually convinced me to start seeing a therapist. The therapy helped gradually. Dr. Winters specialized in trauma and betrayal. She helped me understand that my mother's reaction, while painful, was a common defensive mechanism. Some people, when faced with evidence that would shatter their worldview, will reject the evidence rather than adjust their perception of reality. Slowly, I began rebuilding, returned to work with a focus that surprised even me, started running each morning, the physical exertion burning away some of the anger, reconnected with old friends who had no connection to Amanda or my family. And then 3 months after everything fell apart, I received an anonymous email with an attached image file. When I opened it, I found an ultrasound picture. No message accompanied it, but I did not need one to understand what it meant. A mutual friend confirmed the news a few days later. Amanda was pregnant. A DNA test, which my father apparently took voluntarily with great confidence, confirmed he was the biological father. The timeline aligned with their affair. My former fiancé was carrying my half-sibling. The news spread quickly through family social circles. My father's business partners learned of the scandal. Clients began pulling projects. The reputation he had spent decades building crumbled within weeks. And finally, my mother was forced to confront the truth she had been so desperate to deny. The first voicemail arrived on a Tuesday evening in October. I almost deleted it without listening when I saw Mom on the caller ID. But something made me hesitate, and I played it while sitting on my balcony watching the sun set over the Boston skyline. "Harrison, it is your mother. Please call me back. I need to speak with you. It is important." Her voice sounded thin, fragile, nothing like the angry woman who had thrown me out of her house. 6 more calls followed over the next 2 days, each message more desperate than the last. I let them all go to voicemail, not ready to reopen those wounds. On the 7th call, I finally heard the words I had been waiting for. "Harrison, I was wrong. I am so sorry. I should have believed you. Please call me back. I need to talk to you." Even then, I waited another day before responding. When I finally called, she answered on the first ring, as if she had been sitting with the phone in her hand. "Harrison." Her voice was thick with tears. "Hi, Mom." I kept my tone-neutral protective walls firmly in place. "Thank you for calling back. I did not think you would." "I almost did not," I admitted. There was a long pause before she spoke again. "I left your father. I filed for divorce last week. Despite everything, the news hit me harder than expected. My parents had been married for 35 years. I am sorry it came to that." "Do not be sorry," she said firmly. "I should have left years ago. I just did not want to see what was happening. It was easier to believe in the perfect life I thought we had. So you know everything now." She let out a shaky breath. "Amanda came to the house. She is showing now, almost 5 months along. She wanted to talk about arrangements for the baby. Your father was not home and I invited her in. She broke down, Harrison. told me everything, how it started, how long it had been going on. She showed me the texts. I closed my eyes, leaning back against the wall. Part of me felt vindicated, but another part just felt tired. "Why did you not believe me, Mom? I am your son." Her sob came through the phone clearly, because believing you meant accepting that my entire life was a lie, that the man I spent 35 years with was capable of such betrayal, that I had wasted my life with someone who never truly respected or loved me. It was easier to believe you were confused or mistaken. The raw honesty in her voice cracked something in my carefully constructed defenses. "He had affairs before, did not he?" "Yes," she whispered. There were signs over the years, unexplained late nights, business trips that seemed unnecessary, strange charges on credit card statements. I confronted him once about 15 years ago. He made me feel crazy for even asking, said I was being paranoid and insecure. After a while, I stopped questioning, stopped looking for evidence I did not want to find. We talked for nearly 2 hours. She told me about the divorce proceedings, how my father had initially tried to hide assets, but her lawyer had been thorough. How she had moved in with her sister temporarily. How former friends had taken sides, some supporting her, others believing my father's continued denials despite the pregnancy evidence. "Can we meet?" she asked eventually. "In person, I understand if you are not ready." I considered refusing. The pain she had caused by choosing his lies over my truth was still raw. But I also recognized the courage it took to call to admit she was wrong. "There is a cafe near the public garden," I said finally. "Tomorrow at noon." Our first meeting was awkward, tentative. She looked older, smaller somehow, the confident suburban matriarch replaced by a woman visibly shaken by life's cruelties. We stuck to safe topics at first. The weather, my work, her plans to sell the house. Gradually, over weekly meetings, we rebuilt something resembling a relationship. Not the blind trust of before, but something more honest. She began therapy as well, working through decades of subtle manipulation and gaslighting. My father attempted to contact me several times as his life continued to unravel. His business lost major contracts. His country club membership was quietly revoked. Former friends crossed the street to avoid him. I deleted his messages without listening. Amanda and my father apparently moved to Florida together once her pregnancy became impossible to hide. According to my mother, they presented themselves as a normal couple with a significant age gap, conveniently omitting the circumstances of their relationship. I wondered sometimes about my half-sibling, an innocent caught in the twisted web of betrayal. I decided I would consider a relationship with the child someday, but not while it meant dealing with either of them. My own healing journey continued. Therapy helped me work through the anger and betrayal. I threw myself into a major project at work, earning a substantial promotion. My new apartment began to feel like home rather than just an escape. 6 months after the initial confrontation, I went on my first date since Amanda. Sarah was a litigation attorney I met through James. She was smart, funny, and refreshingly straightforward. We took things slow. I was transparent about my trust issues. She was patient, never pushing for more than I could give emotionally. The first time I introduced her to my mother was a milestone for all of us. A sign that we were moving forward, creating new connections, not allowing the past to define us completely. Running became my therapy between therapy sessions. 5 miles every morning, rain or shine. With each footfall, I felt stronger, more in control of my life. I started journaling as well, pouring out thoughts I could not articulate aloud. The pages filled with anger initially, then gradually shifted toward reflection and even forgiveness, not for their sake, but for my own peace of mind. My relationship with my mother settled into a new pattern. Lunch every other Sunday. Phone calls midweek. The rawness faded, replaced by a more honest connection than we had ever had before. She apologized often in those early days, until I finally told her that continuing to dwell on it was preventing us both from moving forward. I never fully reconciled with my father. Some betrayals cut too deep for forgiveness. He sent a letter on my birthday, expressing regret not for his actions but for how things turned out. as if the destruction of our family had been some random act of fate rather than the direct result of his choices. I burned the letter without responding. Life has a way of moving forward even when you think it impossible. A year after discovering their betrayal, I found myself genuinely laughing again, enjoying simple pleasures, building new memories, not tainted by what came before. Sarah moved in. We adopted a dog from the shelter. Normal life milestones that once seemed forever out of reach. I learned that healing is not linear. Some days the anger would return full force, triggered by a random memory or seeing a black BMW identical to my father's. Other days brought unexpected peace, a sense that I had survived the worst and emerged stronger. The most important lesson from this nightmare was learning who I could truly count on. Not the people who shared my DNA or made grand promises, but those who stood by me when everything fell apart. Who believed me when the truth seemed too painful to accept. Who showed up day after day without being asked. I also learned about my own resilience. That I could lose everything I thought defined me, every future plan and cherished relationship, and still find a way forward. Still build something meaningful from the ashes of what was destroyed. If you have experienced betrayal by those closest to you, know that the pain is real, but it does not have to be permanent. The people who hurt us do not deserve to keep hurting us through our memories of them. We can choose to carry the lessons without carrying the weight of their actions forever. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after a devastating betrayal? Share your story in the comments below. Like and subscribe if this resonated with you, and hit that share button to help others who might be going through similar struggles. Thanks for listening to my story today, and remember, sometimes losing people who betrayed you is not a loss at all, but the beginning of reclaiming your life.